Hello everyone, once again, from the dystopian hellscape monarchy oligarchy of the United Kingdom. And today we're talking about something a lot of you have been asking me to cover. And if you followed me on Twitter, you've probably seen my tweets about this. And it's talking about TYT. TYT going right wing. Going to discuss that. TYT basically becoming like more hostile to leftists and stuff. Genuinely, the situation is just very sad to me. And like, a lot of videos are going to be uploaded, a lot of streams just attacking Cenk and Ana and saying terrible people, irredeemable, transphobe, right-wingers, grifters, and all that stuff. And I thought what would be more helpful is to try and make a video where we get into the mindset of both these people and try and understand, like, where they're coming from. I'm not going to go easy on them or anything like that. I'm just saying I think it's more helpful sometimes because I honestly believe in the case of Ana especially, Twitter is really not helping. Not because she doesn't deserve backlash, she does, but I think the backlash is reaffirming a lot of her more reactionary political opinions, and I think that is just going to lead to her maybe even double down, triple down on the stuff she's been saying recently, which we're going to talk about too. And I'm well aware, like, Cenk or Ana could watch this, maybe Ana more than Cenk, so I'm trying to be a bit more charitable in this video, not towards their takes, but towards their maybe worldview, and maybe talk about how Twitter can radicalize anyone. And I'm not saying Ana Kasparian is like J.K. Rowling, but you guys will all remember that J.K. Rowling started off talking about how she supported trans rights, right? And now look at her today. And I seriously believe part of J.K. Rowling's downfall is because of Twitter, and is because of this toxic feedback loop which incentivizes maybe reactionary takes and really cements certain opinions based on who is praising you and who isn't. And in the case of J.K. Rowling, we see back in the day when she started saying more transphobic things, the people praising her were conservatives. And now, even though she claims to be some sort of liberal feminist but gender critical, it is pretty clear she's right wing. You even have people like Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, I think were always terrible guys, but it's even pretty clear in their own echo chambers on Twitter, they've radicalized themselves even further. And I believe that might be happening with Cenk and Ana in that, disappointingly, they see the left as their enemy. They're calling us radical leftists, extreme leftists and stuff. And yeah, maybe if you're some centrist or a conservative, you might see me as an extremist, which I don't think I am. I don't hold extreme positions, in my opinion. But I am a Marxist, I am a communist. I do believe in, like, fundamentally changing the status quo through whatever means possible. And if that means revolution, that will have to happen. Like it had to happen in Vietnam, Cuba. I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. But the problem being is I think with Ana and Cenk, they see violence as just terrible, no matter who does it, for whatever reason. And that recently showed itself. I was watching a video. They were talking about the Proud Boys fighting with Patriot Front. And what struck me is they were talking about, like, political violence never being justified, even against fascists, basically. And on the surface, I don't necessarily have a problem with someone thinking that. If you just hate violence, that's whatever. I think it's a bit naive when you're dealing with fascism, but that's fine. We're allowed to have disagreements. But then as part of their whole worldview, as we're going to talk about Ana's recent takes on Twitter, I think it's just, you know, quite naive. It also makes me realize why they see someone like me as an extremist, even though I'm not. And then the really disappointing part is I've actually had a positive interaction with Ana because she told me that she liked my videos, and I took the chance to tell her how much TYT has meant to me, how much it's helped me in my political evolution, how much personally I really liked her work, and she personally inspired me in many ways. And then to see her do what she's doing right now, it's just seriously disappointing. And I wouldn't call Cenk and Ana my heroes, but imagine, you know, whatever your hobby is, imagine whatever your passion is. For me, it was political YouTube, right? I started this in 2017. I always wanted to be a YouTuber. I watched TYT since like 2011. Always liked them, always thought like, oh my God, wouldn't it be so cool to host TYT? Cenk's obviously one of the main players, but then to see Ana, who I really respected for having like her own political evolution, which kind of mirrored mine in some ways, and then to see the direction she's going in now is just like so disappointing, but it's also just so confusing. So that's why I wanted to make this video, just to try and understand where this is coming from. And someone described it best. I can't relate because I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, but they said watching TYT up until now has been like watching Game of Thrones, like seasons 1 to 7. And then you get to the last season and you're just so confused by why it's so bad. Like, how did this happen? Why is this happening right now? And I guess it's the same with me. Like, I didn't love the Star Wars sequel films, but when I started watching episode 9, I'm just like, what is this? Like, I'm so confused about how bad this is. Why is this happening? Like, who allowed this to be made? And I guess that's how I feel with what TYT is doing right now. But more so Ana, because, like, Cenk is older, Cenk is Cenk. He seems like one of the most stubborn people ever. And, like, you just accept that sometimes, even though I disagree with the direction they're going now. But with Ana, it's just a bit more disappointing because it's like, she's a bit younger, although she is still older than me. And you respect her positions, you respect her pushback to Cenk on certain issues. And then you just see this happening. And it started with the birthing person stuff, and it's getting worse. And it's just like, can this even be stopped at this point? And I'm just hoping to have a more, like, rational discussion about this. At the same time, I don't know if either of them watched this. I don't think they'd even come away from it thinking I was charitable towards them. They probably think I'm just being so unfair and attacking them, and they've just been so hostile to everyone. And, you know, I've seen them be hostile to David Dole from the Rational National, someone who has, like, that credibility, respectability. Cenk was even super hostile to Emma from the Majority Report. And it's just like, here is one of your former employees who did loads of good work for you, has said nothing but nice things about you, and she says one, like, mild criticism, and you just go off on her. And it's just like, do you have no loyalty to these people? It's this crazed, like, siege mentality where they see all criticism as just bad faith. And we're going to talk about why they might see it that way. And to me, it's just, like, really disappointing because now their whole worldview is basically extreme left or crazy. They're just as bad as the far right. They're basically the same, to be honest, because they both hate us for certain reasons. So yeah, I want to talk about all of that today. So let's first talk about myself and, like, my relationship with TYT. I've always had, like, a massive soft spot for TYT, even since I started, you know, being out as a Marxist in, like, you know, 2019 and stuff like that. And I've still watched them regularly. So one of Ana's responses to someone was, you don't watch TYT. And I'll say that I do watch TYT. I watch it most days, actually. And I watch coverage of a lot of their stuff. And mainly at this point, it's because it's, like, comforting, because it's something I've always watched. But also, I like just keeping up to date on US politics. I like Cenk and Ana's dynamic, or whoever's hosting the show, like John or some other people. And I've just always enjoyed that. And it's been a massive part of my political evolution. Like, I started watching them 2011, properly in 2012. Remember them covering, like, all these elections, covering Trayvon Martin, covering the original Black Lives Matter protest, covering basically everything and keeping me up to date as a British person. And as I found myself in, like, that age of, like, 18 to 20, where you're working out your politics, and I spoke about this on my podcast, like, a month ago, I believe, where I just said I was just some weird centre-left contrarian, and TYT helped me, like, kind of work through that. And obviously, it kind of had some more negative influences, because I watched a lot of TYT, I kind of fell down, like, the new atheism rabbit hole, and I don't think that was good for me. But at the same time, like, it introduced me to, like, a lot of issues with capitalism, although they aren't anti-capitalist. Basically, we're the first people to take Bernie Sanders seriously in 2015. I still remember that video, like, John basically covering Bernie Sanders announcing his campaign.
Bernie Sanders is now officially running for the presidency. The Vermont Independent is going to be running for the Democratic nomination, very importantly. And he does stress immediately, we're in this race to win. Because almost all the coverage, even including mainly from the Young Turks, when we previewed that he would be running yesterday, there is this sort of need to continually repeat the fact that he's not going to win. Oh, he's going to move Hillary to the left, but of course he's not going to win. He's going to raise money in small donations, but of course he's not going to win. Do you think that there's any hope of that? Do you think that we are doing a disservice by continually talking about the fact that his chances are low?
I don't think you do a disservice when you offer astute analysis.
That you think is accurate.
People who say that he's not going to win, that's what they're doing. They're offering analysis. We're not going to. It seems very, very, very unlikely.
And I think TYT actually played a big part in marketing Bernie to people and getting his name out there, so people did know who this guy was, who basically, when he announced, had, like, zero chance of winning. And look what happened. He nearly won, like, 2 times. He probably should have won the second time if the whole DNC didn't go against him. Yeah, and of course I've had my disagreements with them over the years. I don't mind that. I'm not a Puritan. I'm not a zealot. Ana and Cenk are allowed to have different politics to me. I've accepted that. Like, over the years since I've become a Marxist and stuff, I've accepted they're not the same as me. And that's fine. I don't care, to be honest, because in real life, I have plenty of friends who probably wouldn't even understand my politics, right? And that is the main thing you have to keep in mind, is that online isn't real life. And you're being shown a side of online sometimes, and this is in regards to Ana and Cenk on Twitter, that does not resemble real life, right? And as someone who is a communist, who has plenty of friends who aren't communists, I don't care, they're not communists, right? We can often find common ground, and I do kind of, get the sense they're upset with capitalism, but that is how I view TYT. But recently, and this is just like the last couple of months, I'm watching it sometimes, and I'm just like, what the hell am I listening to? Like, what are these takes? And I think part of it is, especially to do with trans rights, it's not just with trans rights, it's to do with, like, sometimes crime and sometimes homeless people and stuff like that, where I get where their personal perspectives come in, but I really disagree with them, and I don't like the way they characterize people who want to, like, abolish the police or abolition of prisons and stuff. They always paint it as the least charitable version possible of just, like, one day I'm going to snap my fingers and there's going to be no prisons and police anymore, and it's just going to be complete chaos or something like that. That seems to be what they genuinely believe in these instances. But the stuff with trans rights is, of course, the most concerning. And if your only, like, trans host has quit your show because she believes both of you are transphobic, you have a problem there, right? Like, if you genuinely care about trans rights, even if you disagree with what she was saying in her video, which we're going to talk about a bit later, I just do not understand how this isn't a massive moment of self-reflection. And I think the problem is, for me personally, I just never got the vibe TYT actually care about trans rights. And I don't think they're transphobic in the traditional sense that they hate trans people. And also, as we're going to talk about a bit later, I don't think they understand racism properly and transphobia, because with these things, it's a spectrum, right? And it's hard for people when you are, like, white, you're straight, you grew up in a world where you don't even see trans people. Like myself, I'm 27, younger than Ana, and I don't remember any trans people growing up. The only trans person I remember was Eddie Izzard. And nothing in the discussion about Eddie Izzard really informed me that they were transgender and stuff like that. So for someone like me, you grow up in that environment, you don't even know what a trans person is until you're, like, late teens. As you learn about it, it's a constant process of examining, like, your own biases towards trans people, because you've grown up in a heteronormative society with a really rigid gender binary as you understand it, and that's what everyone has. I was younger, so it's easier to accept, but even I'll admit, like, I was very happy to accept, like, trans people as legitimate, trans people as someone worth, like, fighting for. I remember one of my early videos, I think it got taken down because of copyright, because I tried to find it. It's basically like these parents took their kid out of school because another child was transgender. And I'm proud of myself. When I went back and watched that, I was obviously criticizing the parents for being idiots. But if I'm honest with myself and talking about my evolution from my older teen years through my 20s, I was happy to accept trans people. If I was honest with myself, did I accept trans women as women? And that was a process for me to get educated, learn more, to actually accept trans women as women. And I'm someone, 27, and I'm telling you my experiences. And I feel like this is relevant in the discussion of TYT because they're older as well. So they grow up in this environment, and, you've been fighting for gay people's rights and all that good stuff. And then suddenly you have a new thing that you don't really understand, right? And the problem with gender critical feminists as well, especially older ones, is that they have this worldview about, like, the patriarchy, about, like, gender norms and stuff like that. And they have a version of liberal feminism, which is often white centered as well. And I think it's hard for them to reconcile that with accepting trans women into this feminism as well. And that's why you get so many of them being radicalized, because they don't see trans women as women. Because, like I said, for a lot of us, it's a process to get to that point when you grow up in a very transphobic society. So they don't see trans women as women. And then they become more reactionary. They become reactionary for what they feel like are efforts to erase women. And whether Ana knows it or not, she is playing into this right-wing framing of this stuff. And it's all about, trans women just basically are infringing on women's spaces. And in the US, I'll give credit to the Democrats, they are better on trans rights and stuff. But what you don't have in the US as much is liberal feminist TERFs. TERF actually does mean a feminist who doesn't accept trans women, right? And that's why you have people in, like, the Labour Party or liberals in the UK, like J.K. Rowling, who just don't accept trans women as women. And I just feel like Anna's recent statements on, like, birthing person and talking about, like, hormone blockers and talking about all this stuff, like, it very much is a gender critical feminist TERF, like, framing of things, and a right-wing framing of things if you're American. But the thing is, Ana doesn't actually think she is transphobic. So Juniper tweeted at them, "Not sure if you've noticed, but states are currently using violence against trans people. Curious as why you seem to care about the grifter who terrorizes trans people. Then trans people are being affected by this legislation and violence." Ana saying, "You don't watch the show, so you have no idea what I talk about or how often I defend the trans community. I think the fringe shit and activists like you turn the country against people, you're just too stupid to see it. So Ana doesn't think she's transphobic because, yes, I watched the show. She sticks up for trans people. She sticks up for trans rights. But if you watch that Sitch and Adam podcast, it's pretty clear she is still buying into a turfy, gender-critical feminist worldview talking about fringe shit when she could just, like, ignore that, right? And that is something that also bugs me, is why are you saying this? Like, that's what's so confusing. Like, why is this the hill to die on now? You know that so many states in America are completely hostile to trans people even existing. Some of the biggest conservative platforms in America are calling for measures to basically make this a reality for everyone, not even just children, everyone, to stop trans healthcare completely. And at this time, you're choosing to talk about, like, I don't know, gender-neutral terms for vagina on the Adam and Cenk podcast, or talk about hormone blockers for children and stuff like that. I'm just like, what are you doing right now? Like, why are you doing this? Because my main point is from two angles. One, you're wrong, and people have told you you're wrong. And I know that's hard to admit because you think you stick up for trans people, which you do, but that doesn't stop transphobia because it's a spectrum. But then I'm just like, can you not just bite your tongue and not say anything? Like, why are you saying this? There's, like, 1,000 issues to talk about right now. Literal fascism is very much a real threat in America. And what are you doing? You're talking about stuff the fascists are using to actually erase, like, a whole group of marginalized people. My main thing I'd say to Ana is, like, at the very least, just, like, stop talking about it. Like, why are you speaking about this? Speak about something else. But now let's talk about some Twitter radicalization here with Ana. It's like, so she sees this. She's getting pushback from everyone. Everyone is calling her terrible things. And what she thinks is, I am a trans ally. I do defend trans people. There's evidence of me doing so. Go watch TYT. Every single week, I do this. And like I said, I agree. She does this. But now she doesn't understand why people are calling her transphobic. Because she's like, how? How could they say this? She really doesn't understand why people think this. And like I said, with racism as well, which I'm going to talk about a bit later, it's a spectrum. And you can still be transphobic while sticking up for trans people. I like to think of myself as a very good ally, but one day I could say something and people be like, well, come on, Kavernacle, you're being transphobic. Do better, learn. Here is what you need to know about X, Y, and Z. Why don't you, read up about it, right? And hopefully, I know what I'm like, but hopefully I will accept that and read about it. People have told me, I've done things wrong. So I remember a big one for me, I think I called gay people homosexuals, and the gay people in my audience were like, we don't like that term. It's like, feels too clinical. It feels too othering. Can you please just, not say it anymore? I'm perfectly happy, like, not to say that, right? But I could go the other way. I could be like, oh my God, homosexual's a word, accept it. You're a fringe people. This is why no one likes you, and you're going to derail our push for equality in the US or the UK and stuff like that. That's the other way you can go about it, right? You can either accept you're wrong and admit it. I'm not saying I'm better than Ana or, like, I'm being condescending, but I'm saying you have to be willing to challenge your own biases. Me describing gay people as homosexuals and stuff in that context, I forgot what the context was exactly. They didn't like it, so now I don't say it, right? And even if the text says homosexual, I just say, like, gay people instead, because they've told me, that's how they'd like to be referred to. And I'm not a gay person, right? I didn't know anything about this. The same way, I'm not a trans person. So I listen to trans people when they talk about trans issues, trans healthcare. I don't listen to bigots. I don't listen to fear-mongering. I don't listen to people who oppose, like, trans healthcare and take, their evidence for it. Like Ana, I'm a white straight person as well, right? So I'm going to defer to respectable trans people who, like, I trust to talk about these things. It's really none of my business. And that's what David was kind of saying to Ana as well on Twitter. David Doll saying, like, this is none of your business. Trans healthcare is not your business. So why are you talking about this? Like, why is this the hill to die on? And that's what I don't understand. And that's why I'm worried that she's becoming some sort of gender critical feminist, where she does stick up for trans rights, as J.K. Rowling used to say she did. But then because she's called out for other elements of transphobia, which as straight people, we actually have to combat, like, a lot, because we've been conditioned to not accept trans people. The same way white people have been conditioned to be racist since birth because of the societies we grew up in. You have to keep challenging that. So Ben Carollo is a trans woman who was a TYT host, and she quit yesterday, right? And she quit because she says she thinks Ana and Cenk are transphobic. And that's because of what Ana's been tweeting. It's how they frame issues.
Because there are so many people that are literally looking to people like Cenk for opinions. And he's literally just giving them an open invitation to be as transphobic as they want to be because it's politically strategic.
They'll say that, but okay, you don't care about the politics? Let's just, for once in your life, think strategically about what that means. That means that you're gonna continue pushing the Democratic Party to unequivocally support everything that the trans activists want, even if it's unpopular among the electorate. That means they're not getting reelected. That means they're gonna lose to Republicans. Republican lawmakers who are passing draconian, disgusting legislation in various states right now as we speak against the transgender community.
Look at this. You're gonna push the Democratic Party to unequivocally support everything the trans activists want. Like, shut up. Literally, shut the fuck up. This is so embarrassing. Like, Ana Kasparian, and like, look, I'm gonna be real. This is my personal opinion, but whatever. I think Ana Kasparian is genuinely personally transphobic. I'm just gonna say it right now. She's like saying and doing all of the things. She's referring to every trans person as a trans rights activist. Referencing every trans person as a trans rights activist is just, on its face, literally transphobic. And it's one of the things that transphobes have been pushing for a long time, is just calling every trans person a trans rights activist. I mean, and the media more broadly does this as well. And this whole idea of like, you're gonna lose to Republicans, you're gonna lose to Republicans if you cater to these trans people, once again, is entirely debunked. Most people are fine with trans people, and when Republicans make their entire platform about attacking trans people, it actually does undermine their political success.
And go watch Ben's video, because I don't want to just, have this video taken over by them and like take away the views and stuff. So go watch Ben's video, because she breaks it down perfectly and uses a lot of clips to highlight her points about why Ana and Cenk are buying into like this transphobic framing and stuff. But basically what I'm thinking now is, you had one visible trans person at your network who was just quit because of transphobia. And that's not a moment of self-reflection. Like, I don't know what their response is going to be, but I just feel like they're too stubborn at this point. Cenk and Ana are way too stubborn, and they just see all criticism on this issue as just hysterical, extreme, radical lefties, right? And we're not serious people. We don't want to win elections, because that's another point. They view everything in the realm of elections. And I don't even know how to structure the rest of this video. But one more thing I want to talk about is, on the Ana and Cenk podcast, there's so many things I could talk about. Like, Ana called out basically Marxist live streamers and YouTubers being grifters, saying that we do this to make money, but also that results in people being really extreme in our audiences. I don't know who she was calling out. I'm guessing it's not me, because I'm probably not relevant enough, but maybe like Vosh or Hassan. And I'm just like, is she seriously going on like some far-right podcast to bitch about how Marxist Twitch streamers are radicalizing people into extreme leftism?
It's funny because, a lot of them LARP is like anti-capitalist, like revolutionaries or whatever.
LARP, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's true. And so it's really funny, because what they do is they are positioning themselves to attract a very specific niche in audiences, right? So they're going for the purists, the people who like to think of themselves as like far left, communist, socialist, whatever. But like the whole thing is, I mean, you can see it in the various streams. Like, they'll talk about things through the lens of, we're the most pure, like we're the most sincere in what we're saying, whatever.
The real
left,
left, yeah.
Exactly, we're the real left. So when they do that, what ends up happening is they become more and more extreme in what they are saying, right? In what they claim to believe. And at the heart of that, like, what they're actually doing is trying to attract a niche audience for what? To make money.
And then she was talking about like race and saying how like she's uncomfortable as a white person when she speaks to non-white people, that she might accidentally say something racist.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm a little scared like I'm afraid of like talking to people who are outside of my race, because I don't know if I'm going to unintentionally step in it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's, and I hate that.
Right.
Like there's this like, I don't know, it's like frigid, because like if all of the message is toward me, and people who, I'm Armenian, but still they call me white passing. So, just got to go with that, right? If people who look like me are constantly told, you are inherently racist. Okay, you are inherently a bad person. I mean, if that's the start, and I had this debate with Cenk when it came to our rhetoric in regard to the other side, right? If the starting off point is, you are trash and we think you're evil,
yeah,
then
totally.
how does that, you're never going to move in a better direction. You're not going to move the country in a better direction. You're not going to improve race relations. You're going to make it worse. And that is what I see happening. I think a lot of the division is due to the backlash to that kind of rhetoric. And I think that, look, I think racism exists for sure. Do I think the majority of white people are racist? Do I think white people are inherently racist? No, I do not.
And what I actually think she was saying here is because she doesn't agree with defund the police and prison abolition in the way a lot of left-wing Marxist types do, she feels like if she said something against that, she'd be perceived as racist. But she also said, I don't believe most white people are racist. Because you're basically, if you say that, you're saying they're all evil or something like that. Like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but it shows a lot of people, they don't understand racism properly. And it's because it's uncomfortable to talk about. I just talked about like transphobia for me growing up, and I've also spoke about racism. I went to Catholic school. I'm third-gen Irish immigrant. Everyone I went to school with was basically from an immigrant background, mostly white, Irish and Polish, but also a lot of Indian Catholics, Ghanaian, Nigerian Catholics, Filipino Catholics, you know, a very big melting pot in one of the most diverse boroughs in London. And I've still spoke about, you know, I grew up not thinking of anyone lesser than because of skin colour. I still was affected by racism growing up in a white supremacist society because it was the war on terror. I was bombarded with this racial stereotype of Muslims all the time, and I believe that made me more inclined to be like new atheist when I was a bit younger, and that is of course racist, right? Most white people do not grow up in the melting pot I grew up in, and they will be far more racist than me because you grew up in a white supremacist society, right? And it takes a lot of time to unpick that, unpick your racial biases, unpick your transphobic biases or homophobic biases, because you're raised in a country like the UK and the US, which is fundamentally a white supremacist place, right? So most white people by default will be racist in some way, but it's a spectrum. Being racist in some way isn't you are a terrible person, you should join the KKK. You're a white person, you've been raised in a certain way, so you probably will be racist to some extent. If you're lucky enough like me, you get raised in a very diverse environment, so you don't have the hang-ups of, oh, I'm scared of non-white people, or I think they're lesser than me, or I believe all these racial stereotypes, but you still have stuff affecting you. But imagine if you grow up in like some white-only town in like the Rust Belt, everyone is a Republican who watches Fox News. It's going to be insanely racist. So this black and white thinking is really not helpful, but I think it plays a part in how TYT view people, because it's so black and white, because Ana thinks she can't be transphobic because she sticks up for trans rights all the time, but you can be transphobic. The same way how if you stick up for the civil rights of black people, you can still be a racist, right? You can still be a racist to black people, and you can still be a racist to other different people, because just having like one position which defends that minority group doesn't mean you can't say bad things towards them or be bigoted against them. When you grow up in this system, it's constantly about like unpicking this bias. It's annoying we all grow up in this system, like as white people. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and recognizing how you react to certain things as a white person and realizing how that is influenced by white supremacy, which is all around you, especially in media that you consume and you're brainwashed with from a young age. This video is a bit all over the place, but also on like Twitter addiction with Cenk and Ana as well. Probably going to be like the most charitable part of the video. I'm also like a content creator like Ana. Ana is far more established, and I would say is far more in that like content creation bubble and stuff. And this is where I'm going to be charitable, kind of, is that getting so much hate online is really bad for you. And I can't imagine what it's like to like be a woman over the last decade in leftist spaces and all the stuff you will be attacked for, you'll be criticized for, you will be held to a higher standard on, and how bad that is fundamentally for your brain and also your ability to take criticism. Now, Hassan recently said, as someone else who's a big content creator, he said it makes him so hostile to people who even like troll in the chat because he thinks they're being serious. So it makes him really hard for him to take criticism. And I totally understand that. Like for me personally, most of the hate I've gotten on YouTube, like coordinated hate, has been from other leftist people, right? Mainly Hassan fans or Vosh fans, which is weird because I have no beef with either of these people, right? I know Hassan reacted to one of my videos on him, but like genuinely no beef. But the fans of these people hate me for some reason, especially it feels like Vosh fans. And they're the people who spread smears about me. You know, they especially hate me for my views about Ukraine or Taiwan. They go around saying I'm like a Russian sympathizing tanky like Jimmy Dore or Tulsi Gabbard. Like literally, I've had people harassing me on Twitter saying stuff that I never did and just being non-stop about it. I've even had people harassing me on Twitter, Zoomer leftist, because I follow certain people, which is insane. They're like, oh, you're complicit in the bad thing this guy did because you follow someone who's their friend. That is the type of like insanity these fan bases often have. So I understand like how crazy some Zoomer leftists can be. And of course, yeah, 18-year-old Marxist-Leninist who will harass you, call you terrible names, say all these lies about you to everyone else. I get how that affects someone's mental state. Like, I really do. And that's where I'm trying to sympathize in how someone has such what it feels like a massive U-turn on their political ideology, because what happens is they say something that is either transphobic or buying into like a transphobic narrative. All loads of right-wing people are very nice about it because they want Ana on their side. Loads of Gen Z leftists are scathing about it and will give you no sympathy, and you're cancelled forever in their view. Like, they don't want anything to do with you anymore. Ana Kasparian is part of the Young Turfs network. I've seen that going around as well. They're super uncharitable, and I know that as well from experience. I know that, and I know how bad it is for people, but also I think it's important, and it is hard to do this. You have to separate the legit criticism from the bad faith attacks. Bad faith attacks are fans of Vosh coming after me for something that I perceived to have done, like I'm a simp for Vladimir Putin or some shit like that, and I have to separate that from actual criticism of my political positions. And why it's been frustrating watching Ana and Cenk respond to all this is that they seem to lump in 18-year-old Marxist-Leninists with anime profile pictures who troll, and they lump that in with people who they've worked with. They lump it in with Emma from Majority Report, or David Dole, or Mike from the Humanist Report, or Lance from the Serfs. And I'm watching them like call out all these people or argue with them in a very hostile way. And I'm just like, you should respect these people enough because you know they're being serious and also arguing in good faith. They aren't acting like a 20-year-old Vosh or Hassan or Destiny fan or something like that. They are adults who are about the same age as you, your peers, people who've even hosted TYT, and you're acting like they are, you know, as I described, fans of Twitch streamers and stuff. And it's just like, that is how Twitter can like radicalize you, because now what Anna's seeing is loads of centrists, liberals, gender critical, liberal feminists from Europe or something like that. And then you have like the right wing all saying, you know, we agree with you, Ana. Thank you for being one of the sane people on the left. But I don't know if Ana realizes people like Ben Shapiro are liking your tweets about trans people, not because they like you, not because, you know, they want you over to their side because they respect your intellect or something like that. These people are like basically fascist misogynists anyway. They're doing that because they want you on their side and to platform you more so they can say, look, Ana Kasparian, the face of the left online for years, part of TYT, the largest progressive network, even she says those leftist trans rights activists have gone way too far. So you know they're crazy. You know everything the GOP doing right now. Whether you totally agree with it or not, it, you know, makes sense because even Ana Kasparian and Cenk are saying these people are crazy. These people only care about themselves and their egos, and they're actually a detriment to trans people. And actually, they've caused the hate against trans people because they're so insufferable. Like, that is the logic of Cenk and Ana at the moment, and it's just very disappointing because these people are well educated. They've been doing this for a long time. Do you not have good enough critical thinking skills to realize what's happening right now and realize people like David, Mike, Lance from the Serfs, and other people in this space, they don't want to cancel you. They don't want to ruin your career. They're doing it in good faith. The way I feel like I'm trying to do it in good faith now, I don't think you and Cenk are bad people. I just feel like you've fallen into this trap, this culture war, which you claim to hate often, and you're taking a side of it. You're taking the side of being anti-left, which in a lot of ways is siding with the right against us. And you have to realize, like, yeah, your audience might be older than mine, for example, but a lot of young people watch you. I've watched you basically my whole adult life, right? And now, after making this video, it's going to be hard to watch you because it's just hard to watch the way the channel is going. And that's sad because I don't want this to happen. And I want to like get to the last part. Like, Ana is someone I've like really respected. And it's actually hard to make this video because, like I said, imagine one of your heroes in whatever you pursue or someone who inspires you just starts doing stuff like this and you just don't understand it. Obviously, these are like private messages between me and Ana. But I cannot actually tell you like how like happy I was to get this message. Like I said in my 2022 roundup video last year, I said this was one of the highlights of the year, getting this message. Like, this is how much like this meant to me. So Ana followed me on Twitter in 2021, which I thought was cool, but I was like, no way she watched my video. Because, you know, someone who actually inspired me to be a YouTuber, and I wouldn't be a YouTuber without, is following me on Twitter now. Like, that blew my mind, right? And then she actually messaged me about this crypto video I made, saying she wanted more information on it. And then she said in one of the messages, I loved your video on NFTs and crypto. Keep up the good work. I really enjoy your explainers. This one gave me confidence to help speak out against crypto because I always thought it was a scam. So then I helped her, and she was asking me for information on the video. I said, here's all the links to the stuff I was talking about. And then at the end, I was just like, I said to my girlfriend when I realized I had a message from Ana, I was living in Spain at the time. I said, should I play it cool? Should I play it cool and act like it's not a big deal? Like someone who inspired me to do YouTube is messaging me. So I just was like, I'm going to say it because I'm like, I'm probably never going to speak to her much again. So I said, I have to say, I'm an absolutely massive fan of TYT. I've been watching for over 10 years, and you and Cenk specifically have been a massive influence on me politically, and were the inspiration for me even getting into YouTube in the first place. I've been watching a lot of TYT lately too, and your videos in crypto made me laugh. I've also had a similar political evolution to you, not so much Cenk. In my shift towards leftist anti-capitalism more broadly, you probably don't realize how much it means to me that you've watched my videos. And she even went on to say, your videos are excellent, I really enjoy them. I'd love to pitch you as a guest on TYT's Friday Power Panels if you're open to it. I didn't take that last part seriously. Like, I didn't actually think I'd ever be on TYT, despite the fact I do know some people who've been on it myself. But just like the fact I had that interaction, like, was just great. Like, the thought of someone who inspired me to do YouTube, watching some of my videos and like really liking them, like, what more can you really ask for? And, when she said, like, you could even come on TYT, like I said, I just think she was being nice at this point. I was so happy with that. I was like, oh my God, like, this is, so cool what has happened. And then the sad thing is, if like I didn't make this video and she messaged me next week saying, do you want to host, do you want to come on TYT? I'd say no. And that's just so depressing. That's so disappointing. And like I said, I'm not trying to cancel these people, but I hope you guys understand like how, like, I wouldn't say upsetting is the right word, but just insanely disappointing this is. Like, it's like, I guess for people with Dave Chappelle was similar because it's kind of similar, I guess, with the trans stuff. And, you love Dave Chappelle, inspired by him to do comedy, and then he comes out with stuff like that. And this is what it feels like. But it's different because I feel like, I have that parasocial relationship with Ana and Cenk through years, like absolute years, from a young teenager to me being 27. I have that parasocial relationship. And then she actually reaches out to me, like saying she likes my videos. And then I'm just feeling like so great about that. And now I have to like make a video talking about how they're just shifting so much that I just find it hard to support them at all. And the thing is, people were saying to me on Twitter, because I wrote about this on Twitter, they're saying, get over it. Just because you're not like them, you have evolved past them politically. And that's the problem, right? I have no problem with that. I know I have gone more leftwards than Ana and Cenk. I said that in a video in 2019 that I made about them, saying that they're a positive influence on me. And I know that's a fact. I don't care about that. Like I said, I don't care that Cenk is a liberal, progressive capitalist. I don't care Ana isn't as left as me. Like, honestly, I really don't. What I care about is what they're saying about trans people right now. And, broadly some of the takes they've had about racism or violence and stuff like that. But I can live with a lot of those ones. But right now, what Ana is choosing to stand for, it's just, I just can't make sense of it, really. And I'm trying to make sense of it. And that's what this video is. I'm trying to make sense of why she is doubling down. But I just think she is reading the wrong thing. She's in a bubble. And the bubble is being validated by everyone attacking her. And it's happened to a lot of people. It happens to so many people. How many people have had their brains broken by different things? Joe Rogan with COVID, right? Jimmy Dore with COVID and other stuff as well. Gone like absolutely insane since then. Elon Musk changing from a centrist to basically like a fascist. Jordan Peterson going from reasonable to being someone that even him, if he could see himself in 2023, be like, what is wrong with this guy? And now I really just hope Ana doesn't go down this path, because she's talked about being a free thinker, and she's talked about on the Adam and Cenk podcast about her political ideology being malleable.
Kind of set the record straight about what I have personally experienced. I don't know what my political labels are at this point, right? Because I feel like I don't really fit anywhere. And that's just full honesty. It's, again, very uncomfortable for me. And I want to say that out of any point in my adult life, this is probably the point where I'm the most malleable and open to new information because of what I've experienced over the last few years.
And that's what I'm worried about, because all this stuff she's been saying reminds me of stuff I read from gender critical feminists. And like I said, Ana is significantly better on trans rights than mainstream gender critical feminists, but at the same time, she's buying into the framing of these arguments. I just don't understand it on any level. I don't understand why she's talking about this in the context of what's happening to trans people in the US. I don't get why both of them don't take any criticism from their peers. I'm not talking about Zoomer leftists. I'm talking about other content creators who have hosted TYT. In the case of Emma, worked for TYT for years, and their whole response is just being hostile. And I get it. I get being hostile because I'm hostile myself. People criticize me on my videos for something dumb, I will be hostile to them. I don't care, right? But if David, who I respect, said to me in a message or a comment, you know, I don't really agree with what you're saying here, whatever. If Mike said that to me from the Humanist Report, another person I respect, I would take that more seriously. If before all this stuff started happening, if Ana said that to me, I would take it seriously as well. If Cenk said it to me, I would take it seriously because I respect them. And that's why it's so hard to like make a video like this, because someone you respect, was inspired by, has been part of your like YouTube consumption, but also like your inspiration for your own political positions for a while, are just turning into something that is so against your core values. And it seems like they're just blaming it all on people like me. They're blaming it on the extreme left. I don't even think this caricature exists beyond like Zoomer Marxist Leninists. I really don't. So that's why it's so disappointing. So if, you know, Ana or Cenk ever watch this, I'd just say, like, think about the people you're alienating with this language and rhetoric, right? Like, I understand we're all going to have differences of political opinion. And the main thing I will say is I think their worldview is just insanely class reductionist. They believe that trans people fighting for their rights because it's unpopular at the moment is the wrong thing to do because you won't get universal healthcare passed. I've made videos criticizing Carl Kalinske for something similar because I believe he does that too. And just to end the video, like I said, I don't want to just get on a massive dog pile against Ana, but she tweeted this and then deleted it today. And she said, you know, the civil rights movement did not use the same strategies as the trans movement. They didn't barricade speakers they disagreed with in a classroom for 3 hours. They persuaded through non-violence and showing America their humanity. And like, that is just disappointing to read because it just shows complete ignorance, because the civil rights movement was way more militant than the trans movement, like really, really so much more militant. And I'm not just talking about the Black Panthers. They were more militant. They had guns. You don't see groups of trans people walking around armed to the teeth like you saw with civil rights protesters, which I support, by the way. It seems like she's blaming trans people for their own oppression. It's like, you know, you weren't like the Saint Martin Luther King who was like non-violent. They get beaten to death and they wouldn't fight back and stuff like that. That's the caricature of MLK and the civil rights movement she's thinking about in her head. And that's why she thinks the trans rights movement are going too far, because one time they locked someone in a classroom or something. And it's just very much cherry picking. And trans people are, in my opinion, would be totally legitimate and going way further with their protests than what they're doing at the moment. If they went to the levels of not the sanitized version of the actual civil rights movement, that would be legitimate. Like the stuff they're facing right now. And Ana's basically saying they're going about it all wrong because they alienate people because of his class reductionism. And on that note as well, someone Ana really likes is Ben Burgess, who I have like a lot of problems with. And Ana is tweeted about how like Ben Burgess is like my favorite people, super smart, kind and principled, a rarity these days. And there's something that Ben Burgess wrote in a Jacobin article, so we can't cancel ourselves into a better world. This thing, I think, sums up TYT's direction right now. If we're going to get everyone healthcare and end police violence at home and imperialist wars abroad and expand democracy in the workplace, we need to learn to appeal to the broadest possible subset of the population. Far too many people whose material interests align with our program will find the face the left often presents to the world deeply unappealing. And that's what Ben Burgess thinks, but I think that's what Ana and Cenk feel as well towards trans people and people who advocate for trans rights. And I hate this worldview. It's only centered on issues that basically everyone can relate to, but is exclusionary to issues that, you know, certain groups face. Like universal healthcare isn't ending racism, right? And often doing the right thing morally pays off down the line, but is unpopular when you do it, right? Let's think about Stonewall, right? Anna's saying that the civil rights protesters were non-violent, which isn't true, but in the same era as the civil rights protesters for African American rights, the Stonewall riots happened. The LGBT community literally beating up the NYPD. And you'd have to ask yourselves, what would Cenk and Ana say about that if they were around back then? They'd denounce it, wouldn't they? But that is like part of the liberation of gay people and the LGBT community in America is because they fought back against the cops. And they used violence to preserve themselves, right? And if you have some class reductionist worldview, you're saying, well, that will alienate the truck driver in Wisconsin or something like that. That will alienate the truck driver in Texas or something because they don't like trans people or gay people. And it's just a terrible worldview to have because, yes, trans rights is not the most popular thing at the moment. But one day we will be vindicated for fighting for it. And it, you know, it's everything really. Like think about revolutionaries in Cuba, Vietnam, right? So many of them died fighting for that. So many people died fighting for civil rights, gay rights, trans rights. They will never get to see that better world. And most people when they're alive, hate them. Most people in America hated Martin Luther King. And he is absolutely loved today, right? Because he did what was right for African Americans. And it cost him his life, by the way, as well. So the argument that, like Ben Burgess, and I think what TYT are pushing right now, is that don't alienate people. We need a broad church. We need to not focus on culture war, like trans people's right to exist and stuff. We just got to focus on universal healthcare and stuff like that. And in the context of America, like, really, come on, look at electoral politics. When's universal healthcare getting passed? When is any policies that the left want getting passed with Joe Biden? What if Joe Biden wins the election, right? Another 4 years of nothing. So I would argue, actually, a better use of your political activism is fighting for the rights of marginalized people, which is unpopular. And I would say it's a better use of time to actually advocate for trans rights and fight for trans rights than it is to fight for universal healthcare, because in my opinion as a communist, that is just not happening. It doesn't matter who you elect. Bernie Sanders could have become president in 2020. Universal healthcare would still not be passed. And just like with the Stonewall riots, looking outside of electoral politics is important. And why this is so frustrating as a final point, I've heard Ana express this sentiment as well. When she was really frustrated about Roe versus Wade, she was saying stuff like what I'm saying right now. But now, seemingly, electoral politics is all that matters. So much so, we should abandon the fringe trans activists because they're going way too far. And that is not the language of a leftist. And I imagine Anna's feeling pretty shitty right now, but I also think she's probably feeling quite stubborn and maybe vindicated that everyone hates her for these takes. And I would just say, please just have some introspection, read some more, because I don't know if people will think this right now, but I think she's better than this. And I think trans people in particular are well within their rights to disagree with that comment. But honestly, based on watching her for so long, I think she's better than this. I think Cenk is even better than this, even though he's just insanely stubborn and I know he won't change. So I'm hoping they'll reconsider. And come on, if your only trans host is quitting because they think you're transphobic, it's not because there's some fringe radical lefty who's so sensitive. You should listen to that. You should listen to the video and you should reconsider your points of view right now. Even if it is just not saying this stuff anymore. Like, even if it is just biting your tongue and not saying stuff about hormones, puberty blockers, gender neutral terms for vaginas and stuff. Like, why? Like, look what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida. Is that important? It doesn't matter. Please just stop. Please just stop. And I guess that is it for the video. I know some of you might disagree. You might think I've been way too charitable. I'm trying to be in good faith about this and get into the mindset of why these people are like this. But like, this hurts to do. Like, I don't like doing this. I don't like doing this to people that I've looked up to since I was like young. I'm all for criticizing people's political positions, but saying all this stuff about someone that, you know, is key to your not only political evolution as a young person, but to like your career right now. Like, I'm doing what I love because I watched TYT growing up and they inspired me. And now I'm watching them go in this direction where me at any age would be disgusted by it. Like, not just me as a 27-year-old Marxist, like a 21-year-old contrarian centre-left person. I'd be like, what are you doing right now? Even like 18, you know, I don't think there's any age of me who is politically conscious which would accept what they're doing right now and would understand what they're doing, because I really don't understand it. And I think in the long run, they're going to really regret it. And J.K. Rowling is just a warning to everyone. I'm not saying Ana is like J.K. Rowling or she'll even become her, but J.K. Rowling is a good example in that she was loved by people for her work. People respected her. People loved what she did. She ruined it all. Her legacy when she dies is going to be so tainted. And people are going to look back in the decades after she dies and basically think she was a terrible person. Like H.P. Lovecraft or something like that. You don't want your legacy to be tarnished by going on some sort of weird pivot against trans people when they're facing like one of the worst coordinated attacks they've ever had in like American history. Like, you know, come on. I just think you have to be, I don't know, a bit more empathetic or something. But anyway, that is it for the video. Nice and long. I don't know how long it's going to end up being. But if you made it this far, thank you for watching.